Welcome to the Inspiration Cafe. We're speaking with Lancey Cowan, Director of Meeting Logistics, the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology. Did I get that right, Lancey?
That is correct.
Perfect, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
The cafe is a place where we can talk about subjects of relevance to a lot of people. We talk about meeting planners a lot, but now we have a chance to actually talk with a meeting planner so we can hear it first person.
Great.
How is your role changing, or how is the role of the planner changing from your perspective?
Well, for me personally, I came into the industry from a purely logistics standpoint. And with this association, in the last 6 years or so, my role has evolved quite a bit from just the logistical, food and beverage, and room specs and things like that into a more strategic positioning. So I have some work with the program committee that we work with, and program design and the new creative things that they're doing, and we try to work to integrate all of that, what our members want from a program perspective, drive the logistics instead of just the opposite, which is what happens sometimes, I think, with planners, because we're so focused on the details, we forget about the big picture attendee experience.
And we have heard from so many other providers, AV providers, hoteliers, that it would be great to be able to work with planners on a more strategic level rather than just, as you say, logistics. But can planners really do that in their organizations, or are the organizations still looking at them primarily as get the details done?
Well, I think there's a couple of issues. I think I really think that smart associations have to look at the planners as strategic. And one of the other things I think influences that, for me, it's the increase in involvement of the third-party companies that do meeting planning. And so a lot of associations are seeing that as a way to outsource their meeting function and a way to have someone else do the pure logistics, and they might not have a staff planner any longer. But I think they really lose something. And it's sort of self-serving of me to say that because I am a staff planner, that's what I do. But one of the things I've found is that the more you can learn about your members and what they want and the overall picture, the better you can put on a meeting and the better you can do the logistics. And so I think that we almost have to, and that needs to be the trend.
I mean, I will say that people we've spoken to here at the cafe have said, let's be fair to the planners. They're all multitasking. None of them have enough money. None of them have enough staff. So I assume that's true in your case as well.
It is. Our organization's very lucky. We have good resources. We have leadership that believes in giving the resources where they're needed. Now, the resources don't always come the minute we know they're needed, but we have a plan for it, and we've been fortunate in that respect. We've been fortunate in this economy as well. We've been a group that has not had attendance issues or any of that sort of thing because of the nature of our business. And I also think we have done quite a bit, especially in the last 5 years, new creative things with our meeting, listening to our members and what they want. And I'll say one thing that's unique about our meeting is we had been in the same destination for a long time, and we're starting to move the meeting, and that gave us an opportunity. You know, going to the facilities, new facilities, you can look at the facility instead of just as a big box. You know, is there something unique about this facility that I can use to serve the needs of my members?
We've talked again about the members, not any association's members, but how do you keep track of what interests them? What are the mechanisms you have for finding out what's on their minds?
Well, it's difficult partly because nobody likes to answer a million surveys and that sort of thing. We take room counts at our sessions, so we kind of know what topics are hot. We notice that the networking events that we set up are filled to the rafters. So that's an important thing. We find that, and people anecdotally will tell us, we have a program committee that's elected by our membership, and they feed us a lot of information about, well, they want more opportunities to network, and they want to have food, and they want to have this and that. A lot of times there's a budget attached, expense attached to it, but sometimes we can figure out creative ways to do it without breaking the bank.
Where do you think this is all headed from a planning standpoint? I mean, do you think the role of the planner is going to continue to evolve to a more strategic level, and operations will be set aside? Or?
Well, I don't think operations are being set aside. I think that yes, I think it has to evolve to a more strategic level because we're trying to meet the needs of so many people with maybe one meeting instead of 5, because I know that with shrinking budgets and things, sometimes what people do, it's more limited. And you can't always, we're starting a new program for online education. We've actually hired a whole new staff person just to come in and do that because no one's had time to really focus on it. But we haven't seen that can replace any of the face-to-face. And so the logistics are the logistics for the face-to-face meeting. They're going to have to happen. And that's really where our vendors can be helpful. If you work with what I find is that if you work with your vendors ahead of time and they know what your expectations are, the logistics might not consume as much time if the vendors are helpful and responsive. And I think that's the number one thing planners would want,
Right.
is to have not a one-size-fits-all approach to vendor relationships.
I know for a long time, associations were hearing very late from their members about attendance. Again, maybe different for your organization. And as a result, they couldn't commit to rooms until much later, so this
Right.
whole sequence of events. Was that ever a problem with your organization? Did you?
We've been sort of unique because we've been in the same destination, so we have a pattern. But
Right.
we also, our members are sort of trained, if they want the best hotels, they have to book early. But we are taking a conservative approach. We have a plan, so we have a core block of rooms booked, and we have a plan to add more rooms as they're needed on a more stepwise approach, not just
you're
book
able-
everything right now.
So you're able to commit on a normal schedule, right?
Right. And we also are it's not, like I said, it's not one size fits all. So it depends on what city we're in. Some cities, it's easier to manage the inventory. And so that's a conversation to have with the CDBs and with your hoteliers. My main philosophy is I am, maybe to our detriment from a negotiation standpoint, I'm very upfront with what our needs are and what our expectations are. And I actually find that we end up better off in the end from that. So I'll say, we can't book this hotel now because of X and Y, but we'll look at it here. And as long as you're communicating timelines and expectations, I haven't found an issue with that.
Great, yeah, because I know for some hoteliers it's tough when it comes,
Right.
with a short booking window is a problem.
And we actually have hotel contracts booked out all the way through 2021.
Oh, so I
So
think
I believe in doing it. I like to front load the work because it's less work for me later.
Perfect.
Right.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Lancey, quick question for you. If I had a whole room full of hoteliers here, what would be the one thing you'd say from a planner's perspective that would make your life simpler or their life easier, or anything you could say to them that would be relevant to their...
Read the RFP.
Carefully, read it.
Read it carefully and internalize anything that's in the RFP as an expectation, and make sure that you understand the needs of the particular group. And I understand that's a challenge with RFPs coming in that might not be serious business. So that's a kind of I know that's a challenge for hoteliers, is figuring out what is a legitimate lead and what isn't.
Right.
But once you've qualified a lead as legitimate, really make sure take the extra time to make sure you know what the planner needs and what their interests are, because it may not be the same for me and 5 other planners that you talk to. Our needs may be, if I'll tell you my top 3 needs, that's my top 3 needs. Someone else might have their top 3. So adjust what you're doing.
I've got a room full of AV providers. What do you tell them?
It's really the same thing. It's listen, and if your planner is giving you details, make sure you incorporate those details into what you're doing. My philosophy is if a planner's telling you something, they're telling you for a reason. They're not just telling you just for their health. So if they're saying, here's details that I need you to pay attention to them, and what you give back to the planner, make sure it's what you think they need.
Perfect. Lancey, thank you so
Great,
much.
thank you.
We've been speaking with Lancey Cowan, Director of Meeting Logistics, Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology. The Inspiration Cafe is full of tutorials much like this one, so please visit often and certainly come back and view this episode.